Okay, so hanging doors. The way I hang doors, I mean, different guys do it different ways. I don't do it for a living. Um, Obviously, I do a little bit of everything, but I've hung quite a few doors. The way I do it is these are 6 foot 8 inch doors, so they're easier than 8 foot doors, obviously. And I have a 6 foot 8 inch level. Uh, it's an odd size level. It's for hanging doors. Um, I don't use it on pre-hung doors because I let the door be the guide to how I shim the frames. But like here, this is a cased opening, so there's no door. It's just a walk-through. So with a jam and a casing on it. So there I use it because I don't have a door as a guide to know how straight my jams are. But if you don't have any cased openings and you just have the pre-hung doors, you don't really need the special size level. I mean, you can use a 4 footer. What I do is on the hinge side, the side that's going to be the hinge side, I take the 4 foot level and I put it on the 2x4, and then I see if it's tipped this way or tipped that way, or if it's plumb. If it's this is the hinge size. If it's tipped out this way, then what I do is I nail the top of the, yeah, see it's blurring because it's focusing on my hand now. Anyway, I nail the top of the jam to the 2x4. I just put like one nail in it. I get it where I want it this way, to make sure that it's centered between here and here. If I'm hanging in a closet and my opening is, wider than my jam for whatever reason, maybe sloppy framing or whatever, I'll frame the side, not the closet side, but the outside, even with the sheetrock. When you trim lays nicer. If it's inside like a small closet like this, I mean, nobody's really gonna be walking in there because it's all shelves. It doesn't matter how your trim sits. Also, I use a cheaper trim inside closets, usually 1x2 or 1x4. If it's a closet you're not gonna walk into because nobody's ever gonna see it. Anyway, yeah, but getting back to hanging the door, so I'll put a nail in here and it'll hold it. And then I also, even before I go to that step, I always put shims. I hold my jams up off the floor a little bit thicker than what my flooring material, a little bit thicker, a little bit higher up than what my flooring material is going to be. Now, if you're putting in carpet, it's just a default 1/2 inch. And if I don't have anything that's a 1/2 inch thick, I'll cut some little, like 5 inch long, like 3/4 inch by 1/2 inch strips, and I'll put them underneath there. And then I do that for the doors, for the casings, and for the base. That way your carpet guys can come and they just like to tuck the carpet right in underneath. It's faster, easier for them. And if you ever go to repaint in the future, it's easier to paint, to trim next to the carpet, because you can just get a piece of sheet metal and slip it, push the carpet down a bit, slip it underneath the jam, and then paint down that piece of sheet metal. When you're done, pull it out, and then you paint on the carpet. Instead of trying to like tape, put masking tape on the carpet, so it's always a headache. But mostly it's about your carpet guys, because they don't want to come in and start cutting real fancy around the jam and the base molding and all that. So, but if in this house I'm using a luxury vinyl flooring, it's about 5/16 thick. They go by millimeters, but anyway, it's about 5/16 thick. So I'm holding these jams up at least 3/8. That way I have a little bit of play. So I'm doing the flooring here. Sometimes I hire it done. But anyway, it's easy. You don't want it too tight because you got to slip your flooring in underneath. I don't cut the flooring around the jam. I slip it underneath. It's a lot easier, obviously. So I have some shims that are thicker. These are a good 3/8 of an inch thick, so they'll hold it up more, or at least a 1/16 of an inch higher than the thickness of my flooring. And the flooring goes directly over the subfloor. So anyway, yeah. So then I put a shim on each side like that, like I have here. This one's I've already pulled out, and then I set them on top of there. And then I've got this one corner now nailed because like I said, we're pretending. This was plumb, so it didn't matter, but we're pretending that maybe it's tipped out. The framing is a little bit out of plumb. It's tipped out that way. Anyway, yeah, and then I close the door, and I see how the top is. How is it on the top? Is the top high? Is the top low, or is it pretty even all the way across? If it's not, what you can do is, I like to use a flat bar when I'm hanging doors. It's coming in real handy. But let's say, so you got that nail in there. You can slip this under, put on top of your shim, and you can push down on this, and you can lift your jamb up a little bit to even out how your header is above your door. So if your door has a big gap on one side, say because the floor is not perfectly level or whatever, say you have a bigger gap here, for example, if you lift this side up by putting that flat part down below and then tweaking it up a little bit, you'll even it out. That's one way you can do it. You can also shim the bottom out a little bit. I mean, it's good to have doors perfectly level, but it's not really that necessary. If you get too much out of level, your door's gonna want to open, swing open by itself and stay open, unless it's latched. So you don't want to be too much out of plumb, but they don't have to be, nobody's going to know. Yeah, I mean, if you went around the doors in your house, you're going to see that they're not all plumb, especially if you're in an older house. It doesn't make that much difference. So what I'm saying is, if you were to push, if you have this nail tight to the 2x4, and then you were to push the bottom side out, shim it out more, so it's not tight to the 2x4, but you shim it out more. What you're going to do is you're going to push the bottom of the door over that way, and you're going to make this side come up, right? This top edge of the door, because now the door is going this way, so this top edge is moving up closer to here. Actually, that's what I've done here. I have this shimmed more on the bottom, a little bit, but not that much. But sometimes it's a lot. It depends how. Now I frame this, so when you're framing yourself versus just doing it for a living and banging out houses really quick, you tend to do stuff a little more exact, but a lot of framing isn't. So anyway, yeah. So that's why you can get this side up, or if this side is down too low, you can also shim this up a little higher, right? Bring it up a little higher. I mean, you want the bottom of your jambs to be close to, a little bit more than the thickness of the flooring. But if they're not, even if they're up 1/8 of an inch or even more from the thickness of the flooring, it's okay, because your painters will come by and caulk that. It's easier for them to caulk if it's fairly close. It also gives a nicer, cleaner caulking job, because they don't have to squirt a big, thick wad of caulk in at the bottom. When they come back for their final touch-up, and then they caulk after the flooring's installed, and they come and they paint your shoe moldings and do their touch-ups, and then do all that caulking, and then they touch it up with the brush. Anyway, yeah. So that's how I do it. So I nail the jamb side or the hinge side first, and then I get the door. It's sitting in the frame, so I get this side lined and this side lined, and then after, see, I haven't even finished this one yet. I still have to shim here, and so what I like for a reveal or for a gap, let's call it a gap. I like about 3/30 seconds. It's more than a 1/16, and it's less than an 1/8. I try to make that consistent all the way around. It's a nice reveal, and it gives you enough room, so when you go to paint in the future, that the door doesn't start binding on the frame. Some people, they hang really tight, and then after 1 or 2 coats of paint, they're binding, or the house shifts a little bit or whatever. So that's how I do it. But so after I nail the top and I get the bottom adjusted to where it needs to be, and I'll tack like 1 nail in there again to hold it, but not really a lot. So if I need to adjust it, I can still move it around. And I get this thing here, this reveal on top. the way I want it and get it even. This I actually have to, this is warped. This is warped, so I'm gonna bring this down a little bit like that, and then I'll stick a shim in up here. Sometimes you have to do that, but usually you don't. Anyway, yeah, and then I do the midpoints. So I've shimmed here, but I already broke the shims off. I usually shim near the hinges, and I think I shimmed like here, and I already broke the shims off because I wanted to use them on this side. Anyway, yeah, so if you shim at your hinge points, it moves your door around a little bit more. You can adjust a little bit more than if you shim in the points between the hinges. It doesn't work as well. So I'll usually shim at or near behind where the hinges are, or close to it. Maybe I'll shim right here. So then I get this lined up, get it nailed in. Then I'll put like 3 or 4 nails down at the bottom, because remember I had 1 nail here, 1 nail here, and I'll put 3 or 4 here. And usually 3 or 4 at each shim point. And then I come back and then I shim this side. And sometimes these are hung in a factory. Sometimes you have to beat this over. Now it'll open up here, but the painters most of it won't even show you. Really, after you put your trim on, you really only see this here, a little bit of gap. But sometimes you have to beat this over to get what I consider to be enough room, which is, like I said, about 3/32. So anyway, yeah. So I beat this over. I put a block on there. I don't hit directly on I got like a scrap block. I call it like a beater block. Right, so it's like a scrap piece of wood. I put that on and then I hit on this. I put that on the jamb, because you don't want to put hammer dimples in in your door jamb, and then when they paint it with semi-gloss paint, you see all the hammer dimples. So I put that on there. I'll hit this over, try to open this up a little bit, and get this cap the way I like it, and then I'll do the same thing down at the bottom. I don't have to hit it, obviously, but I'll move it to where I like it. I'll shim it, so I get that same reveal all the way down, so it'll be shimmed, and then I put a couple nails in here, and then I shim, which is what I'm going to do now. I'm going to shim this intermediate part, and I'm going to try to make that reveal the same, or that gap the same all the way down. Now, as far as shims, I like cedar shims. I know they have these pine shims at the big box stores. I like cedar shims. Now, I used to use this Irving brand, and I don't know, they went sideways. I ordered these online and bought them on Amazon. Usually I buy them in the store, but I needed them. I couldn't wait. And so I bought them on Amazon, and now they changed. Now they come in this plastic. It's like their homeowner shims. And then whenever you see something that says professional contractor on it, it's always be aware. It's like it's made for homeowners, but they want to make them feel like, yeah, I'm a professional. Anyway, so they changed their shims. But I already bought these, so I'm just going to use them up. Good shims are really, really tiny on this end. These are already, this is even more than a 16th. And then they're fatter on this end. So now they're thinner on this end, and they're fatter on this end. They're not like, and this is more important, if you're gonna do a lot of this kind of stuff. But see these here, these are another company, which I'll show you. These are how the Irvings used to be. They're real tiny on the end, and then see they're fatter on this end. So they're just much easier to work with. They do a better job, because sometimes you just need this is like less than a 16th. It's about, it's like a 32nd. So sometimes you need that to move something a little bit, right? So anyway, but I like the cedar shims. They're easy to, you cut them after you install them, you just cut them with a knife, break them off. If you need to break off where they're really thick, it's easy. If you get the pine shims, they're kind of whitish color. They're usually shorter. They're usually like maybe less than a foot long. I think these are around 14 inches or whatever they are. It's pretty standard size. Anyway, yeah, these are just easier to work with. So you can get cedar shims. The brand, let me find the brand. Maybe this isn't real important, but I got these at the supply house. This brand they come in a package. I think there's usually around 42 in a package. This is how the Irving shims used to come. These are SBC, so www.sbccedar.com. Canada, the Irvings are also made in Canada. Anyway, these are the ones, 42. That's a standard package. Irving still come 42, but like I said, they're not as fat. The fat ends aren't as fat, and the thin ends aren't as thin, so they don't shim as well. I don't know if they're cutting corners, or I don't know what happened. They even changed their packaging now, so it's like it's packaged for homeowners. But anyway, yeah. So that's a little about shims. When you're trying to shim stuff, it's kind of important. Let's see what else. Yeah, I think that kind of covers it. It's not simple. I mean, it's simpler than it used to be, because I remember when pre-hung doors were a luxury, more of a luxury than, you had to hang doors from scratch, which is kind of a headache. But anyway, yeah, so that's kind of how I do it. And then, like I said, I'll come back and I'll shim the center part now so that I get that gap the same all the way down. And then also, as far as door handing, is it a left hand or a right hand? If you're on the hinge side of the door, in other words, if you open the door, it hits you in the back, and you're standing with your back to the door, is the hinge behind your left hand or your right hand? So in this case, this is a left hand door, because if I stood with my back to this door on this side, on the hinge side, with my back to the door, these hinges would be behind my left hand. So that's how you know that's one way to remember door handing if you're not sure, is it a left hand door, do I need a left hand door or right hand door? The other thing, what I do before I order the doors, this is more important if you're hiring somebody to do your hanging your doors and doing your trim, is and this is what, like, a lot of suppliers will come out and they'll do the door order for you because they're afraid you don't know left hand from right hand, which a lot of people don't, or they could screw it up. So they do like that. So this is a 2 foot 4 inch by 6 foot 8 inch right hand door, and I'll put the little arrow. I mean, a lot of people do the same exact thing. I didn't create this. I saw it probably many years ago, and kind of everybody does it. This is the way it's supposed to swing. And like I said, if the trim guy shows up and there's just a bunch of doors in the house, he doesn't know. All he has to do is look at this. Well, I'm just used to doing it. I make my own door lists, my own trim lists. I don't need the sales rep to come out and do it for me, but the sales rep will also do this. So this shows that the door swings. In other words, it swings this way into the room, and then it says it's a 2 foot 4 inch door, 6 foot 8 high. Didn't really need to put the 6'8" on there because it's kind of obvious. It's not an 8 foot, just kind of a habit. I mean, you could put 2-4 RH. RH means right hand, or if it's a left hand, it's LH. Anyway, yeah, so that's just a little trick, I guess, if you want to call it that. And then the reason I put the duct tape over is before the texture guys come. Sometimes if they're putting the texture on heavy, you can cover the whole thing, so you don't have to sit there and scrape it off with a putty knife. Anyway, let's see what else. Nail guns. I use the only nail guns I like for finish work. Are these Senko? This is a Finish Pro. It's a 42 XP. Now I had an older Senko that used to be gray. Mine is actually, I think, from the 90s. I mean, it lasted. It broke about 3 or 4 years ago. The problem is the parts were getting hard to get, and so it was very similar to this. Some of the parts were actually probably pretty close to interchangeable. Anyway, yeah, so this is the one I like. This fires. These nails, these are thicker and heavier. They're Senko nails. They're Senko brand. They come in, this is 2.5 inch, which is what I use for hanging doors, and also for putting on like thick trim, like base molding and stuff like that. And I'll get into my trim package that I do here. That'll be another video. This is kind of just about hanging doors, basically. And I hope you can kind of understand what I'm saying. I don't like to edit, so I'm not interested in like setting up a camera, showing me actually hanging a door, or doing any task. My approach is to just kind of do it, or do part of it, and then explain what I did, tell you the tips and tricks, how I approach it, instead of watching me take a nailing gun and nail, or whatever. And then I've got to edit, and I'm just not interested in editing. I just want to pass on 40 plus years of construction experience. Probably 50 now because I started doing work for people when I was, when I was in grade school. But anyway, so that's kind of my approach, and I think you can kind of get it, or you can listen to the video over again and go, what did he say, or whatever. That's kind of how I do my videos. And why I do it is because I just don't want to edit. And like I said, showing somebody nailing something or cutting something, there's a lot of videos on YouTube, but that doesn't explain what you're doing, why you're doing it, how to approach it, or what the tips and tricks are. You might not notice if you're watching somebody do something. So anyway, so that's kind of my approach. But anyway, getting back to these nails. So yeah, so 2.5 is the longest you can get. These nails are thicker. They're 15 gauge. I also buy 2-inch. Which I use for anything I don't need 2.5-inch for. Actually, they come. I think for this particular gun, I think they're down to 1.75 inch, and then, or maybe even the 2-inch might be the shortest that gun will do. But I've got another Senko gun. It's a brad nailer. These are the nails here. These are the 2.5-inch. Yeah, 15 gauge. And these fit other guns, I think. I'm not sure. I don't know if anybody else has 15 gauge nails. A lot of guys, they like those really thin ones. I don't like them, maybe because they're cheaper. But a box like this is like, it's $40. It's 3,000 nails. If it's 2-inch, it's $40, around $40. You can get it on Amazon or whatever. It's 4,000. It's like a penny a piece. So it's cheap enough. And these are the 2-inch. And those are the two sizes I buy for that gun. And then then I have this other Senko gun. Again, these have been around forever. These two are newer because my other ones, they just crapped out after a few decades. Anyway, this is the other Senko nailer. This is a SLP 20XP, really good gun. This one will take nails, I think, all the way down to like 1 inch. But I basically buy, now these brad nails there's a lot of companies that make these, and they all fit each other. Like on Amazon, Meat has them. I buy 1.5 inch, and I buy, these are 1.25 inch. I don't necessarily buy Senko brand on these because there's a lot of brands that are cheaper. And for those, they're all the same. It doesn't matter what brand you buy, they're all the same. So they come 5,000 in a box. They're less than $20 for a box. These come galvanized. Oh, also with these, you can get galvanized version of these too, which costs more. Now you're getting close to 50, but that's if you're doing outdoor work. Excuse me, outdoor work. So, but obviously for interior, I just use what they call bright basic. Compressor's a little noisy. So anyway, so that's kind of it on nails and nailers. I like those guns. I think they're better than anything else on the market. There might be some battery-powered ones that are as good, but as far as ones that use a compressor, those are the best, and they're reasonably affordable. They're not real expensive. See, anything else? I think that's kind of it. As I said, as I start doing more trim, I'll get into the trim package and what I'm doing. But the first thing you do is you hang all the doors. Then you go around and you put all the casings on, because you can't run your base until you put your casings on. So then I'll go around and do all the base, and then usually the last thing I do is the windows, trim out the windows. I trim my windows out. I don't wrap with drywall. I just think it's better. Well, it is better, but it costs more, especially if you're going to pay to have it done. But I'll go over all that too. So anyway, I got to get back to work because now this video is like 24 minutes. Yikes. All right, back to work.